You can support In the Past Lane with as little as $1 a month. Just go to the support page at our website, inthepastlane.com. Thanks.
Whoa, hit the brakes. You've arrived at the #1 drive-by for American history. Welcome to The Pit Stop. Brought to you by In the Past Lane, the podcast about history and why it matters. Here's Edward T. O'Donnell, your host and historian at large.
Hi everyone, welcome to The Pit Stop, your Monday source for history on the go in just about 5 minutes. We offer this feature every Monday, in addition to our full feature episodes, which have been on hiatus of late, but will resume this week with an episode about Thomas Jefferson's daughters. 2 of them white, 1 of them African American. You won't want to miss it. Here's what happened in American history the week of April 15th, 2019. Let's start with birthdays. April 15th, 1889 is the birthday of A. Philip Randolph, who was born in Crescent City, Florida. Randolph was one of the great pre-Martin Luther King civil rights leaders you rarely hear about, but he was incredibly influential. In fact, he's the guy who first thought of staging a civil rights march on Washington, D.C., way back in 1942. That march never happened, but it was the inspiration for later civil rights leaders who organized the famous march that did take place in 1963, where Martin Luther King delivered his I Have a Dream speech. A. Philip Randolph once said, "Justice is never given. It is exacted, and the struggle must be continuous, for freedom is never a final fact." April 16th, 1887, Wilbur Wright was born in Millville, Indiana. Wilbur Wright was the oldest of the 2 Wright brothers, who, on December 17th, 1903, staged the first successful flight of an engine-powered airplane. It only stayed aloft 59 seconds, but it announced the age of flight. April 17th, 1897, American playwright and novelist Thornton Wilder was born in Madison, Wisconsin. Thornton Wilder won 3 Pulitzer Prizes, for the novel The Bridge of San Luis Rey, and for the plays Our Town and The Skin of Our Teeth. Thornton Wilder once said, "An incinerator is a writer's best friend." April 18th, 1857, Clarence Darrow was born in Kinsman, Ohio. Darrow was one of the great defense attorneys of the early 20th century. He specialized in taking on, and often winning, what seemed to be hopeless cases, especially when he sensed that the defendant's case represented an opportunity to take a stand for civil liberties. His most famous case, of course, was the Scopes trial of 1925, in which he defended a teacher in Tennessee who had been fired for teaching evolution in his science class. Clarence Darrow once said, "You can only protect your liberties by protecting the other man's freedom." April 21st, 1838, conservationist and writer John Muir was born in Dunbar, Scotland. John Muir emigrated to the United States and became one of the most notable and influential advocates of environmentalism and conservation. He's best known for his successful effort to preserve and protect Yosemite National Park and for founding the Sierra Club. John Muir once advised, "Keep close to nature's heart. Climb a mountain or spend a week in the woods. Wash your spirit clean." And this seems like a good place to correct an error that I made back in the first week of March, when I said that Yosemite was the nation's first national park. Listener and fellow historian and fellow podcaster Tyler Green contacted me to explain that Yellowstone was the first national park, not Yosemite. Thanks, Tyler. And for all you listeners out there, you should check out his podcast, Modern Art Notes, which features interviews with artists, art historians, and authors. All right, let's turn to events. April 15th, 1912, the ocean liner RMS Titanic struck an iceberg in the North Atlantic and sank. Of the 2,200 passengers and crew, more than 1,500 perished, including 118 Americans. It was the unsinkable liner's maiden voyage, and its fate made headlines around the world. April 16th, 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. penned his famous letter from a Birmingham jail. King had been imprisoned for leading civil rights demonstrations in Birmingham. And while he was in jail, a group of religious figures from across the country wrote an open letter, criticizing King for pushing too hard and too fast on civil rights. His letter in response was a brilliant statement on the illegitimacy of calls for going slow on social justice. He basically said oppression is evil, and it demands immediate and persistent action to bring about its end. April 18th, 1906, the great San Francisco earthquake struck at 5:13 a.m. The 7.9 magnitude earthquake destroyed much of San Francisco and killed 3,000 people. April 19th, 1775, the shot heard round the world rang out at the Battle of Lexington and Concord, signaling the start of the American Revolutionary War. And around here in Massachusetts, we celebrate this as Patriots' Day, which is also the day of the annual Boston Marathon. April 19th, 1939, the great jazz singer Billie Holiday released her haunting song about lynching in America, Strange Fruit. Here are a few notable lines. Southern trees bear strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root. Black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. Okay, time for the last word. Let's give it to Martin Luther King Jr., who issued his letter from a Birmingham jail 56 years ago this week. Here's a key passage. I must confess that over the past few years, I have been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in his stride towards freedom is not the white citizens' counselor or the Ku Klux Klanner, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order than to justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action, who paternalistically believes that he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by a mythical concept of time, and who constantly advises the Negro to wait for a more convenient season. Okay, people, that's your history fix for the week. Now put it in drive and go make your own history.